Hello friends, this is the Rocky Mountain Crafter with you. I have a really fun winter card that I'm going to make today, and I'm using stamp sets by Catherine Pooler. This stamp set is called Winter Arrangement Floral, and it's got a beautiful selection of leaves and poinsettias in it, and it comes with matching dies. And the other stamp set I'm using is Flock of Friends, and it also comes with matching dies. And so the colors that I'm starting off with are Deck the Halls, Spruce, and Sage. And they're a gradient of greens, I guess you could say. And what I'm going to do is pick out some of the leaves here. So some of these leaves have a solid image and then an outline image. And I'm just trying to figure out which solids go with which outlines and pick those ones that I think will be good for my card. And so I decide on this leaf here, and I just do a series of different leaves, and I'm just trying to line up the leaf, make sure that they all have, because there is a couple in this image set that doesn't have a coordinating background. So just want to make sure that the ones that I do choose do have the coordinating background to the outline. So I have them chosen here now, and I'm just going to set them on my block and start stamping. So I pick up the spruce, which is my middle tone of green, and I'm attempting to try to make, I guess, sort of a branch. So I decided I wanted to put my foam piece underneath. I always use a foam because I get a nicer image that way when I'm stamping with a block. And I wanted to put it underneath in case I went over my cardstock and then I'm not stamping on the foam, I'm stamping on my piece of scrap paper. And there I just picked up some of the sage, a little bit lighter of a color of green. And I just roll along here doing little bits and pieces of these leaves, different leaves in different angles, but sort of to resemble a branch as best as I know how, in the different hues of green. I'm stamping primarily with the middle and the lightest tones here, and then afterwards I go and I use the outline in the darkest color or in the middle tone. So on those light leaves, I use the middle tone, the spruce, and on the middle tone leaves, I use the darkest hue, the Deck the Halls. And here I've grabbed the outline for this leaf here. When I was first doing these leaves, I didn't have this one put aside, I don't think. And so I went back and grabbed it afterwards. And I just continue on building up this branch. And this is a marker like a Tombow. This isn't a Tombow brand one, but it's very similar. And it's a water-based marker, and I'm just picking up some of that color where I went outside of the outline. The solid image on the back, the green solid, the light green, when I did the medium green over top of it, I had a white line around it. So I just filled that in with that Tombow. Just picked it directly up off my ink pad. And here I'm just doing a couple of more leaves. I didn't feel like my card was filled in enough. And here I'm doing the same thing. This time I think I did actually grab a Tombow. And I'm just doing the exact same thing here. And then there's some pine branches that come in, and I just wanted to add some of those in there, kind of make it more festive, more wintry, more Christmas. So I just add in a couple of these pine branches in these same tones of green. And so these stamps, they came in a monthly club called Sursee, Club Sursee, and that's Catherine Pooler Club. And I got these 2 full-size stamp sets with coordinating dies. And this was my first month of this club, and this is my first time using any products from this club, and I tell you what, I am super impressed. They coordinate beautifully together. These little birds are just so cute. I was having trouble here deciding which birds I wanted to use because all 3 of them are just so adorable. In the end, I decided on these 2 little cuties. And I'm just conditioning them. Sometimes with brand new stamp, your ink will pool when you stamp it off and it doesn't look very nice. So I was just conditioning them on my arm there. And then I'm just stamping them with black ink here. I do one and then I do the other one. Same thing, just stamping it. And this is Memento black ink that I'm using. And these images just stamp beautifully. The stamps are good quality, plus I'm using that foam underneath, and it's just works out so good. Here I have a Tombow, and I'm taking a yellow hue, which in this case is Tiara, and I'm picking it up directly off the ink pad. So I'm putting, I know it's off camera, I'm sorry, but I'm putting that right into the ink pad. And I'm just picking up some of this yellow. And then I just am coloring these in. And I just try to use some color gradations, I guess you could say. I do them all in this flat color, and I call it flat because it has no depth to it. But then I go back afterwards and I add some depth. And by add depth, I mean that I go over some places twice to make it darker. Or I take a different color, slightly different color, and I add that in for shading. And here I'm still just working on the Tiara color. And here I'm just picking up Tiara again and doing a second coat. And you can see the depth that it's giving just by doing that little tiny bit of shading. And then I start on his little wing there. Now I knew with the wings and the beak that I wanted them more orange, just to give it some variation of color. I didn't want the whole thing to look yellow. I wanted some variation in the color. So I went with a yellow and an orange palette. And for the orange, I'm actually, believe it or not, just using clay mask. It's a very subtle hue of orange. And here I put some on his beaks, their beaks, her beaks, whose ever beaks. And then I'm going in to the scarves. And what I wanted for the scarves, I want them to both look like they belong together without the color being off. Like I didn't want 2 different colors. So what I did was I took 2 colors of red. So I do believe that I'm using Cranberry Fizz and Rockin' Red. And I just really try to emphasize that these are both reds, but one is most definitely darker than the other, so that they belong together, but they're not exactly the same. And in the end, this color palette of just the reds goes really well with the rest of the card. And so here I'm just giving the wings some orange, adding that depth to the wings of the birds and to that bird tail. And then I go back over with the orange on their beaks again and give it a little bit darker color. And that orange again is the clay mask. And here I'm just cutting these cute little birds out with the matching dies that came in the set. There's one. It's so cute. Oh, they're just so adorable. So I'm just taking this little flower and I want to do it red, kind of like a little poinsettia type image, but a mini one. I didn't want it to be too big or too overbearing. There was the larger poinsettia image in the set, but I didn't want that. And I'm sorry, my video is very blurry here, but I actually like that it's blurry because you get a little peek of what the card's going to look like, but you can't see it exactly. So you have to wait to the end to get a real good view because most of this part's blurry. So there is just stamping the flowers and cutting them out. Here's the Wow embossing powder that I'm using. And I'm just taking an embossing pen by American Crafts. And then this Wow embossing glitter is called Clear Sparkle. And it's by Wow. And so I'm just coloring in the parts that I wanted embossed with the Clear Sparkle embossing powder, and I'm using the embossing pen to color over them. And I really like the scarves because they actually showed up really good. Like the variation of color was definitely noticeable after using the embossing powder on them. So I did the embossing powder on both scarves of the birds, and then here again on the 3 little flowers. And here I'm just trying to decide on a sentiment, and it was quite difficult because there's a lot of really good sentiments in here. But in the end, I decided on the one that says, "Your friendship warms my heart." And I'm just putting that sentiment into my all-in-one tool. And this all-in-one tool is by We Are Memory Keepers. And it's an all-in-one tool that does literally everything. It scores, it cuts, you can make bows with it, tags with it. And so here you see me using it as a stamping platform. And I'm just putting that sentiment right at the bottom of that leaf branch that I made out of the green leaves. And I'm just centering it there. And I do it twice just for good measure, make sure everything looks absolutely uniform across the board. Get it nice and dark. And I'm happy with it there. Again, I'm so sorry the video is blurry, but it's great because you don't get to see how lovely this card is yet. And you have to wait until the end because this card turns out beautiful. Anyhow, here I am putting pop dots on the back of the birds, and I also put pop dots on the 3 little flowers that I'm going to use. And just pop them all up. Give them some dimension to this card. So the dimension plus the birds, it just looks so good in the end. Of course, all these things look way better in person than they do on video or with pictures, but and to think this was a card made completely out of the supplies. Well, the stamps were anyways, not the embossing powder, of course, but the stamps out of the supplies that were sent to me by Catherine Pooler in a Club Sursee. And this is the deluxe version because there is a regular version where you just get the stamps. So there it is. And look at the 2 different colored scarves. I love that. But it all goes together with those red flowers. And then I decided just to back it onto some black cardstock. So here I've got my cardstock piece cut and I have it in my all-in-one tool to score it. And I'm just putting the crease into it with my bone folder and putting some tape, 2-sided tape on it with my ATG gun. And sticking it down. Oh, this just turns out so adorable. I just love this. How awesome is that? That little tiny bit of sparkle in there and the dimension and the pop of red. Everything about this card just says winter and warmth and friendship. I just love everything about it. Anyways, I'm so glad that you guys were sticking with me today and watching this video. And if you like my videos, please don't hesitate to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.